Hi everyone, welcome back to the Raupp Museum for our next blue box video. Today I have pulled some artifacts already from the box so that you can get a closer look at them since they're all dresses and other different types of textiles. And for this video, I'm going to give a short overview of history themselves. We don't know as much about these textiles because they were handmade, and when they were donated about 40 years ago, the donor didn't leave as very much information about these pieces. Instead, I'm going to talk a little bit more too about how you can take your own textiles or clothing that's important to you, such as wedding dresses or baby clothing and other special occasion clothing, and store them for long periods of time safely, and how we do that here at the museum. To start with, I'm going to give a quick overview. This piece right here is a camisole, handmade, a little bit mixed between a camisole and a corset. It has a pink fabric here, and they've used pink thread design along the sides. The back here is shorter than the front, and there are little metal lock enclosures. Based on the design, this is probably anywhere between early to mid 1900s. Then this next one here, next to the corset camisole, is a child's dress. This is a mixture between a machine and handmade, and the reason you can tell is because of from this one in particular, the thread is a little bit uneven on the top here where the lace was put on, but in other areas it's very even. So that shows us that it was both types. If I move it over a little bit, and you can see the back, it has these plastic, clear button closures along the back and a tie as well. This one again, early 1900s. This other child's dress here in the back, this one is another mainly machine made, sewing machine made. The lines are really even along here. And then in the back, the buttons are no longer there except for one button here. It's a shell button and it's been broken. So we know that there were buttons at one time in this piece based on the design, and it may have been that they replaced them periodically throughout using this dress. And it has another tie closure. And I'm wearing gloves because our hands naturally have oils on them. And so when you're touching clothing and textiles like this, you can easily damage them over time by getting those oils off onto the clothing and discoloring it. And textiles, clothing, are some of the most sensitive types of museum collections. They are affected by light. It can cause shade yellowing in the clothing, light damage. They're affected by pests. There are certain bugs that love to eat different types of clothes and materials, especially when things are made of animal and plant fibers as opposed to synthetic fibers. In addition, they're also can be affected by humidity changes and temperature changes. So clothing have a characteristic, they're hygroscopic, which means they readily take in and lose moisture, which over time damages the fibers in the clothing. In addition, if they're deteriorating over time, handling them too much can cause more wear in the shoulders or in the closures, like the buttons and everything, which makes it more difficult to wear if everything's falling apart. And finally, some clothing, not most, you have to worry about this, has a characteristic called inherent vice, which means there are multiple pieces that don't work well together. So you may have metal with certain other types of cloth, and that can over time damage each other. Say if the metal starts to rust for some reason, that rust gets on the cloth and stains the cloth. And then to continue over here, this dress in the back, this brown dress, handmade, you can really tell by the different thread lines in the top and along the side. This part here is broken. It's been torn at some point when it was being worn. before I came to the museum. There's a cloth tie on the inside. And what I've done here is put unbuffered acid-free tissue inside the arms to help limit any more creasing. You don't want to create any creasing when you're storing it that already wasn't there naturally. Try to limit that as much as you can by putting that tissue in between the arms and around the waist area or anywhere you're going to fold that piece of clothing. And if I turn it around, you can get a look at the back. You can see there's lots more damage along the top here, but it's a nice pleating design. Again, early 1900s. This design also seems similar to maternity pieces, so it could have been related to that. Maybe it was handmade by someone looking for more maternity clothes, but we're not sure. And then if I move over this piece, you can get a better look at the dress over here. This dress, again, handmade, and it is really evident because some of the threading along the top and the front here is uneven. And it also has a lot of discoloration that could be from the humidity and temperature changes over time, or from light damage, or handling from those in your skin, or a combination of those. It has a really pretty lace design that continues on the arms here, on the shoulders, and as well, I'll turn this around. You can see in the back, there's the lace design, and it has metal lock closures here along the sides, and also pockets. So somebody added pockets to kind of towards the back. A little bit unusual placement of the pockets, but it was probably made specifically for what this wearer needed. And for this piece, we, again, because it's not as strong like this piece, it's best to store it laying flat instead of on a hanger, especially because then the shoulder area, if that's deteriorating, it's not as strong, and over time it'll just make it worse if you have it on a hanger. And finally, this piece in the back is just a sheer white apron. It has a purple design here, a mixture again of hand and machine sewn. You can really tell that someone did some hand sewing at the top here to fix some previous damage. And then it has little buttons that in the back to close the arms onto the side of the shoulders onto the side of the apron. There's a small pocket on the side here as well. Again, for this one, we don't really know the date. It has a similar style to circa 1930s, or 1940s, but we're not sure. Now, as well, we talked about how light and humidity damage things. So these types of materials, these textiles. So it's a really good idea to store them in either a bedroom or a first floor, not an attic or a basement, where there's those huge fluctuations in temperature and humidity. And as well, things like a nice closet where your environment is more consistent. In addition, the museum has all of these 6 pieces are all stored in this box, box 95. And this is an acid-free paper cardboard box, and inside is unbuffered tissue paper. And each of these pieces is placed in between layers of the clothing, as well as scrumpled up in arms or areas where there's folding, so that you limit those creases in your clothing when they're laying flat. And this is a safe way to keep clothing clean and away from light and from other pests and damage. And each of these pieces goes, like I said, in between each piece of clothing, but also in between the layers, so inside the clothing as well. Creates a really good buffer for damage over time, especially when each piece is also different colors, and you don't want that to affect the other pieces and bleed onto other pieces in case there's changes in moisture. So we hope that you enjoyed learning more about clothing here at the Raupp Museum and the textiles that we have. If you have any questions, let us know, and we hope to see you in the next Blue Box video. Bye!